Hey everybody, I'm Lon Stroshine, former public company executive turned lifestyle engineer. In 2022, I walked away from my job as a public company executive. I left without a safety net, without another job, without a backlog of clients, or without a resume. But I left anyway. I left because I knew the best days of my life were right in front of me, and they weren't going to be lived where I was standing. Since then, I've launched a best-selling book, coached thousands of elite performers around the world, hosted a top-rated podcast, moved my family across the country, and created a movement that has inspired the change in 1,000 lives. Look, if you're here, it's not an accident or an algorithm. It's you. If you've reached the top of your game and you feel stuck, if you'd trade what you have but don't know what you'd trade it for, then buckle up. This podcast is for you. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. I'm going to see all of you along the Normal 40 Highway. All right, so here's where I want to start with you, dude. And like I said, there's no scripted questions. I've got no story arc I'm trying to follow. We're just gonna ramble and we're gonna see what unfolds. But I want to start here. I want you to tell me where you were and what was going on in your world when you were in the third grade.
Third grade. Let me look back at this. How old would I have been? 8? Is that right? Is that the age of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my son is 10. He's in the fifth grade. So eighth grade, 8 years old. At the age of 5, I had a car accident um, that would impact my life for the next at least 15 years. I was riding my sister's banana seat bike down a gigantic hill on a road that I wasn't supposed to be on, and ended up at however fast a gigantic hill and a boy without brakes can go. Smashed into the side of a car, a moving vehicle, and it wasn't so much. I used to say I got hit by a car, but the truth is I hit a moving car, which is a whole other fiasco. I flew over my handlebars, my face hit the side of the vehicle, I broke every bone in my face, and I had to be medevaced to Johns Hopkins Children's Center in Maryland. And I would undergo, a number of surgeries and procedures to reconstruct my face. And, within the next 3 years, 8 years old is around the time that kids start noticing that you're different. I've got this huge scar on the side of my face. And I didn't know it was something that I should be insecure about. But right around 8 years old is right around the time that people started pointing out the thing that was different about me. And I also grew up in a home where my my mom was very incredibly loving. She had lost both of her parents. She had almost lost me, and she was, pouring a whole lot into me. And my dad was largely physically absent. I mean, my parents have been married now almost for 55 years. We have a vastly different relationship than we do now, but I grew up in a home where my father was there, but he wasn't really there. He would leave in the morning and go to work. He would come home right around 7 o'clock. We would have dinner together, and he would go up and use the bathroom, come downstairs. We'd watch an hour of TV as a family, and I'd go up to bed at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we would rinse and repeat that. So I had a mom that was very emotionally attached and involved and present and loving and nurturing, but also going through her own grief around losing her parents. And my dad was largely not present. And I felt largely, alone in the world. One of the things I talk a lot about in my life is how most of us men, most of us in general, but most of us men have a whole lot of olders in our lives, but not a lot of elders. And so around the age of 8, I felt largely alone trying to navigate my world.
So take us forward from there. Um, an 8-year-old kid, a scar on your face. The world's starting to um, create different boxes, right? There's starting to be different groups of friends, different ways of being treated and treating others. But take us through middle school and high school.
Mm.
Tell me about high school and what you're involved in and what you did. and just kind of what you were doing throughout your high school years.
So high school, I was a baseball player. I was Tate the baseball player, and I was largely my life. My parents, uh, I was allowed to play baseball so long as my grades were good, and so I skated by as best I could academically, just so I could play baseball. And one of the things that I I became aware of in high school was that my dad's drinking was very hard to be with. He um, he would, he would have two or three or four martinis a night when he would come home. So the few times that we were around, that's the kind of state that my father was in to, navigate things. I I had experienced trauma with the car accident, other things that had happened. And so I had I carried a whole lot of anger with me. It was the one emotion that I felt like I was really allowed to feel as a guy in the world. Um, and I was, uh, I was really trying to figure out who I was and, um, how I could feel like I was enough and not lose the love of the people that I I I felt like I needed in my life.
Were you a good baseball player?
I was pretty good. I was
What
pretty good.
position did you play?
I pitched and I played third when I wasn't doing that.
Ah, so you had a wing, man. You could
I
throw a ball.
I could throw. I could throw. I got recruited by some Division 3 schools and even some Division 2 schools. I wasn't good enough to play Division 1, and I ended up going to a school where I ended up blowing out my knee and didn't end up playing baseball. But I was good enough to feel like I was good, but always striving to be better. It was a very good experience for me to, you know, have some self-esteem and to feel like I was getting good at something. It was fun. It was a big part of my life. The other big, actually, interestingly, and I was a bit embarrassed about this at the very beginning, but it ended up being one of the most profound experiences that I had in high school, which was I sang in the choir. My middle school choir director had told the high school choir director that I could sing a little bit, and he came in most of the time. In middle school I was in trouble, so by high school, when I had this teacher come in like the first or second day of school and come into my homeroom class and say, I need to speak with Tait Arend, I was like, what did I do already? I was like, what did I do? And Rick Lawrence was a guy who would become one of the most important mentors of my adolescent time. He came and got me involved in choir and was one of the first elders of my life to really use this word accountability, that would hold me accountable. And I don't mean it in the way that like you get in trouble for something that you didn't do or did do or didn't do. Like he spoke a lot of life into me. He was there. He supported me. He challenged me. He supported me. He did all the things. And so that was the other kind of most profound part of that period of my life is I sang in the choir and I played baseball. Those are the two things that really lit me up.
Dude, I love it. Well, you're talking to a guy who couldn't pitch and could never play third because my weak ass arm required that I play second base because I
Okay. All
can make
right.
that throw, or first base because I had a pretty good glove.
All
But
right.
and you're talking to my junior and senior year all-state chorus participants. So
What?
look,
How
looky
about that?
here, baby. You and
My
we
a
might
brother
break
from
into a
another mother.
cappella here.
How about that? That's cool. That's cool.
Oh, my wife has since reminded me that might have been she reminds me that I was in a class of 20 students
I
to get that
understand.
distinction because
I understand.
oh
The
man, I love it.
ignorance
All
of
right.
youth is wonderful. We get to,
It's bliss,
it's
baby. It's
bliss.
bliss. And it's the same bliss that you probably had at 8 years old riding your sister's banana bike. Who
Exactly.
knew? Who
Who
knew?
knew?
It's
With
totally just
flowers
awesome.
on it. With flowers
Oh
on it
yeah,
too. You did. Who knew? It didn't matter.
but
I was
if you have
eight.
access to
I,
banana bike and a hill with a 6% downhill grade, dude, you got to see what you can get done here.
yeah, it was first and last.
All right, all right. So you get through that, you um, think about playing baseball in college. You miss out on your chance to be a member of the Backstreet Boys. You get into college. What did you think you're going to do? You get into college. What do you think you're going to do with the rest of your life?
I had no idea. In my senior year in high school, I had a social studies uh, teacher that encouraged us to go on a police ride along. We would get some extra credit, and I needed the extra credit, so I went on a police ride along, and I ended up doing 4 or 5 of those. And it was just such an enlivening, cool, interesting experience. And so I went off to college not having any idea, excuse me, what I wanted to do, but uh, knew that I wanted to maybe explore that. But I had no idea. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I think going undecided into college is can be very helpful, actually. Um, so I was undecided, had no idea, and that opened and again, I had the identity of Tate, the baseball player, and when that fell apart, that was like the beginning of a brand new world that opened up for me.
What did you end up graduating from college with? What was your, if you graduated with a
So
degree, what was it?
my undergrad degree was in human services. I had gone on this experience my freshman year in college with 12 other freshmen in the winter term experience. I went to Elon University or Elon College at the time. And the chaplain and some friends, a guy on the dorm was going on this trip down to Americus, Georgia. It was a month-long experience where we went to Americus, Georgia, where Habitat for Humanity was founded, and we went down to Homestead, Florida, and built 12 the foundations of 12 homes as a result of Hurricane Andrew that had devastated the area. And prior to that, the only service that I had ever done was opened up a door for somebody and expected them to say thank you. And so I had this really profound experience where we working alongside other people trying to make a difference in the world, and that lit a fire into me that I wanted to do something that mattered. I wanted to do something not just for myself, but I got so much when I started serving other people. And so I ended up pursuing this degree in human services, which is, to a degree that helps you work in nonprofits. And fortunately, the nonprofit that decided to hire me was Elon. And so I spent the first 5 years of my career actually running a service learning and then a leadership development program for college students. And that's kind of how I started.
Hey, I want to go back to the social studies teacher. What was his or her name?
I think it was Dittman, I think is his name.
And Mr. Dittman encouraged all students or just Tait Arend to do police
I
ride-alongs?
think it was like probably on a list of many different things that you could do for extra credit, and that was the thing on the list. It was like kind of like a civics class. So it was all students.
All right. And what did that police ride-along teach you? And did it have any correlation with your eventual pursuit in in service?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I've ever made the connection before. I think what came up for me uh, was that was like stepping into a whole. I remember on the very first ride along being with a police officer and um, ended up doing a stop of a guy who was on a bicycle that he ended up having drugs on him and got arrested for that. And it was in part of it like a neighborhood that I was familiar with, and just like introduced me to a whole other world, but a world that had seemed to have a whole lot of excitement to it. Um, like I felt the law enforcement the different I got clued into the difference that a career could have, and it felt like such a invigorating, adrenaline pumping, um, respect inducing. It's like I was with a man who I felt like was significant in the world.
The police
And
officer.
yeah, the police officer. Yeah, it was significant. It was clearly, you know, I don't know that I've ever made the connection before, but there's certainly some seeds that likely got planted in that moment.
Well, we're going to get into a lot more of who you help, what you do, what your core founding principles are. And I just can't help but think that, um, you know, a high school kid who's uncertain about where he wants to go, being putting in the right seat of a squad car for good instead of, the other way you can get into that seat,
Yeah.
uh,
And I've certainly
is
been headed down that path a few times. So yeah, I was in the better seat for sure.
hey, look, the formation of every great story I love to tell ends with it seemed like a good idea at the time. So I understand completely.
Indeed.
All right, well that's dude, this is totally fascinating. So now take us through. Let's just fast forward. Let's just fast forward and tell me what you're doing, what you're doing now. Tell me about
Mm,
your company and what you're doing now. And then we're gonna kind of jump around between this police ride along in college
mm,
and now. But just tell me what you're doing now.
yeah. So two things that I do now. One is I work at a quote unquote day job. I work for the same university I graduated from. I work in fundraising. I raise capital for buildings and scholarships and to really make a difference in the lives of students. And that's what I do regularly. But about 6 years ago, um, and I'll just tell a quick story here if you don't mind. So growing up, I I ran into a kid that lived in the neighborhood and that we would become just best friends. Neither of us had our fathers as present as we wanted or needed them to be. Share with you a little bit about my father and his journey and Brian Reeves. His father and mother divorced, I think when he was 4 years old. And his father was largely present. And to Brian, his father was his hero, but he was his hero because he didn't know his father. And when he got to know his father, he wasn't as much of a hero. But he, Brian and I, in many ways, we raised each other. And um, we would go our separate ways. And I would later read an article, why men don't have friends and why women should care. And it tells the story about how for most of us men, we are able to develop deep friendships in high school and in college, but thereafter, how rare it is for men to really develop relationships, not drinking buddies, not guys that they work with and they can talk about sports and politics and investments and those types of things, but to really talk about your hopes, your dreams, your fears, all of that. Brian and I went to college. We went our separate ways. He moved around a lot. He was living in California. I was living in North Carolina. I would still have said, this is my best friend. We were childhood best friends. And 6 years ago, we realized like we were living life doing personal professional growth and coaching, doing all kinds of things, but hadn't been reconnected. And we could talk one or two or three times a year and pick up like we had never left off, but we weren't really clued into the dark nights of the soul that we were going through. And we made a decision 6 years ago to go on a retreat together, to have this kind of to create a mountaintop experience. And on that retreat together and the mountains of Lake Arrowhead, just north of California, we would watch a movie that would kind of change the trajectory of our lives together. And that movie was a movie called Wind River. Have you seen Wind River or have you heard of it?
I've never seen the movie Wind River.
Okay, so it has Jeremy Renner in it, and Jeremy plays this game warden on a Native American reservation out in the middle of like Wyoming or something. And at the beginning of this movie, he happens upon this girl who is laying and has been murdered and is laying in the snow. And as it turns out, it's actually the daughter of one of his close friends. And I won't ruin the movie for you, but you fast forward
No,
to
go
the
ahead,
end.
dude. Go ahead. I think
Well,
it's important. I do. I think it's important for the listener to know what's going on here. I mean, this is a pivotal moment between you and Brian.
yeah.
Let's spoil away, dude.
Yeah, so at the end of the movie, Jeremy goes to be with his friend, who's played by the actor Gil Birmingham, and Jeremy finds him outside of his home, and he's sitting underneath this like rusty uh, swing set, and he sees him there with all this like Native American war paint on his face, this beautiful sky blue and white paint on his face. And Jeremy walks up to him and he's getting ready to sit down and he turns to him and he says, "What's up with the paint?" And Gil says, "It's my death face. His daughter has been murdered." And Jeremy says, "Well, how do you know?" And Gil responded, well, I don't, because there's no one left to show me what it's supposed to look like. So I just made it up. And that moment, Brian and I were really clued into. We saw the correlation between this Native American man who didn't have elders to show him what his death face should look like with what it's like to be a man in the modern day world where we have a whole lot of olders, not a lot of elders, and that what we know as men in the world is that we have to perform in order for us to be accepted by tribes. If we don't perform, if we don't do well, we don't get to be a part of a community. And so what we do as men is that we are so performance oriented, we pretend like we know, we paint our own faces and we pretend like we know what to do in relationships. We pretend like we know what to do in our own death faces, how to grieve, how to live, how to find like we pretend like we know what we're doing, and we end up leaving a trail of tears behind for the people that we love the most and that love us the most. And it's not because we don't want to do better, it's because we don't know how. And we have been conditioned, even genetically, we've been conditioned to go live life alone. If you go back to the early days of evolution and men and women, hunters and gatherers, the men would go out on a hunt. And in order for us to be able to hunt the prey, we had to be quiet. We weren't talking with one another. We weren't engaged. We were hunting together, shoulder to shoulder as men in the world, but we weren't talking about what was going on. And so this is what we continue to do as men. We go out and we hunt in the world shoulder to shoulder, but we're not largely talking about what's really happening for us, what we're really struggling with, what we're growing through and going through. And Brian and I realized that we wanted to create an experience in the world that where men could have real conversations and talk about what we really needed to be talking about to be able to elevate the areas of our lives that are most important to us. And out of that experience, that journey that we went on, Brian actually launched a podcast called Men This Way that would later become I co-host that podcast with him now. But that would fast forward into in the year 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, when people were more isolated than ever. We made the decision to launch a year-long coaching program called Elevate 2021 to help men focus on what we believe to be the 5 pillars of a thriving man. What are the 5 areas of a man that he needs to if he's going to really elevate his life, he should elevate these areas of his life first. And this is the pathway to becoming fully enlivened, powerfully on purpose, deeply supported. And that is, first and foremost, a man has to be surrounded by other men that are up to something, that they're able to have real conversations about what really matters most in life, to be, to come to a watering hole together and to give our gifts, to create a council of men to be there for each other. So that's the first element that a man has to elevate, the men that he's surrounded by. The second is to be able to step into his purpose, not to step into his work, but to step into his purpose. Who is he here to be? What is he here to create? And who is he here to serve as a man in the world? What's his purpose? The third area that a man has to be elevating if he's going to live a fully enlivened life is his intimate relationships. How can he be powerfully present? How can he have skillful communication so that he can navigate conversations and conflict with greater ease? And how can he have a passion-filled, intimate life with his partner so that they're not just surviving their relationship, but they really are getting better each and every year together? The fourth area that a man has to be able to elevate is his family life. He's got to do 2 things. He's got to reconcile the family of origin stuff that every guy has with either his father or mother or his upbringing or whatever. He's got to reconcile that so that he can leave a lasting legacy and be the father that he knows he wants to be in the world, or to be able to contribute to his family of choice in a way that can leave a legacy in the world. And then the fifth area that a guy has to elevate is we'll just use the spiritual world, right? Not necessarily a religious one. We don't tell men what they have to believe, but we tell men that if they do believe something, they should live that out. And the spiritual life is, how do you connect with powers that are greater than yourself to fuel you in your life with practices and that can give you the energy that you need to live the life that you really want to live. So that's what we do now. I work with Brian to create coaching experiences for men. We've got a year-long program that focuses on those 5 pillars called Elevate 2025. We only have 10 men each year to do that. And then we have a program called Elevate Your Relationship, which is for men that know that they need relationship skills. They might be on the brink of a divorce or a breakup, or they just know that they need skills to help their relationships come alive in ways that give them that new relationship energy that they have. And so we have a 6-month program that help men do that.
It's just amazing. Oh, first, dude, thanks for all that awesome background. Um, it's really amazing. Well, let me start here. In Elevate 21, the first pillar, you said surround yourself by other men who are up to something. I suspect you would have no reason to know, but I own the rights to the phrase "be up to something." If you look on my logo,
Hmm.
it's so crazy. Be up to
Oh,
something.
interesting. Hmm.
The fact that you use those words kind of blows my mind in that we've never compared notes. We've never,
Yeah.
we're not, we're not in one another's daily routine of posts and content. But yeah, what we've seen, what we've noticed, what we've picked up from our conversations, in intimate conversations
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
real elite performing men and women, is that life uninspired, a life when you don't feel like you are up to something pure, something
Hmm.
that's yours, something that isn't something you should do, but something
Hmm.
you get to do. When
Yeah.
you don't have that, you don't have much.
Hmm.
All you have is obligation.
Yeah.
And it's just this suffocation that happens
Yeah.
day after day after day. And so, man, just the phrase "be up to something" and the fact
Hmm.
that you articulated it, unprompted, unrehearsed, surround yourself by men who are up to something, is absolutely fantastic and
Hmm.
completely consistent with everything I've
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
think that to be able to be a part of I think men are literally dying to have these conversations. And what I mean by that is what we know to be true is that 75% of the people that commit suicide are men who are largely going, I believe, who have been largely going it alone in life, feeling like they had to figure it out themselves without any real support. And at some point in time, a man left to his own devices will, we have this distinction called the 5 dead ends, which are what are the 5 pathways that men have a tendency to go down that lead to a dead end life. And most men are going down many, if not all of these dead ends to some extent. And when a man does that for a long enough period of time and isn't surrounded by other men to help him get out of those dead ends, that it leads to tragic scenarios. And it may not be suicide. It may just be a man who is dead inside and not fully not fully showing up and speaking up in ways that allow him to make the difference that he's been put on this earth to make.
I suspect that a dude like you sees people like that every single day.
Well, I
One of
think
the
I think I think if we're really tuned in, I think anybody who's listening to this either knows it to be true about himself, or if you're a woman listening to this, you see it in the men that are in your life, that they are cynical, that they are alone, that they are numbing out, that they're disoriented, that they feel powerless, and they have this mask on that they feel like they have to have on, or they'll get crucified for letting you know that they have a chink in their armor.
image, baby, image. Men are built to have an image, and an image isn't your ego, and an image isn't your identity. Your image is manufactured.
Yeah.
I draw a steep distinction between image, identity, and ego. And I think ego is your friend, man. Listen to your ego. Your ego knows exactly what you want, and it knows when you're not doing it.
Mm,
And we're taught to ignore our ego, control our ego,
mm,
and we cover that up with image. we establish this image that we're supposed to have, who isn't really real, but we manufacture it based on
Mm.
what we thought we wanted 20 years ago, what we think the people around us think is good
Yeah.
for us, and
Right.
what we think is success. And we
Right.
create
Right.
this
Right.
image. We manufacture it. We manufacture a title. We manufacture, that's why we drive the cars we drive. That's why we live the neighborhoods we live in, because we've got an image. Our ego is like, dude, you don't need any of this shit. You don't even want it. You just don't have the balls to go do what you really want to do. So I'm just going to sit here and rattle your cage until you listen to me. And I think that is a huge internal conflict that
Mm.
that men go through. I want to go back to something and it's so fascinating. I love how you communicate, dude. I really admire it.
Mm. Thanks,
Um,
man.
there's the movie we all know, Shawshank Redemption.
Mm.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah.
And if you take that, if you just gloss past that line is repeated again and again, and we all know it, and we can all picture the scene. But but if you rush past it, it's this literal translation of I'm living or I'm dying.
Mm.
And what you just said and what that movie means is every day you're doing one of these things. You're moving closer to living a life you want that's pure, that's organic, that's legacy inducing, that's something you're proud to leave behind, which you will do,
Yeah.
or you're dying, you're starving,
Yeah.
you're suffocating
Yeah.
slowly. It's this slow cancerous emphysema that's slowly just sucking the life out of you. And you're busy doing that. And at some point, you got to snap the chalk line and you got to find, and this is hard. This is hard for a dude. It's hard for people to
Yeah.
be able to say, to accept the fact, that they're at a place where maybe, just maybe, they can't fix themselves.
Yeah.
That chink in the armor you're talking about, that feeling, that lack of intimacy, the person they're supposed to be, the image they've manufactured for others so that other people think that they're better off than they are, all of that makes it so hard for dudes to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm not okay. And I'm not okay any longer being not okay. I
Mm.
need to talk to someone. And that they can't, first of all, they have to accept it. And that's hard. Holy shit, that's hard. And then, even harder thing, Tate, they've got to permit themselves to actually doing something, actually talking to someone, actually sharing how they're really feeling. And I'm
Yeah.
curious for you, how how do you, when that individual finds you and they finally have accepted that where they're at isn't good, and they permitted themselves to say, I got to talk to someone. I'm gonna talk to this dude Tate. I don't know him. I don't I don't know anything about him. I didn't know that he wrecked his sister's bike in his face when he was 8. I didn't know that he was reunited with a childhood best friend. I didn't know that a single movie line changed the course of his life. I didn't know this about him, but I'm going to talk to him. What is the thing that you try to break down for this individual to give them a sense of meaning, hope, and to allow them to feel normal about what they're going through?
Yeah. Well, look, it's such a beautiful question, because most men, they don't get help for their marriage until they're about to have a divorce. Most men don't get help with their career until they get let go. And by that, I mean, see a career counselor or, career coach. Or they don't really dive into the spiritual world until there's grief or tragedy or a a habit that has destroyed something. And again, this is by design because we're told to go it alone. And there's no, so first and foremost, I think that men really getting that they are alone and they're not alone all at the same time is really helpful. Like I got shared this analogy recently, which is really, really helpful. This idea that I use this word transformation because it's the closest word that I have to really indicate what most people are looking for. They create a life, they love their life, but most men get the house, the car, the boat, the kids, the wife, all the things that they thought that they wanted and needed. To your point, that you were, to have the things, to feel significant in the world, to live wherever you live, whatever. We do all the things that we think that we're supposed to have in order for us to be fulfilled, and only to find that success without fulfillment is the greatest failure. And that's what most men are experiencing. That to normalize that, like that's just so normal. And what's your favorite meal to eat? What's your favorite meal?
Dude, I'm a South Dakota farm kid and a rancher, so give me a nice big juicy ribeye any
Okay,
day.
ribeye, my man. That's me too. Me too. Me too. Okay, so if I told you you're gonna have a ribeye tonight, you'd be what? How'd you feel about it?
Do I get to cook it? But I feel
Yeah.
fantastic.
Okay, perfect. Now, if I said, great, now for the next 365 days, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're going to eat that ribeye, your favorite meal in the world. How would you feel on day 365 of eating ribeye, even the one that you make 3 meals a day forever? How would you feel about it?
I'd be wondering if I could insert some grouper here along the way at any point.
You're
That would be
like, give
fantastic.
me freaking saltines. I want saltines. Like, give me anything that's different than this. And it's your favorite thing in the world. So, the beginning of a man actually having something new in his life is for him to get tired of the thing that he has, even if what he has is amazing. He's got to feel like what he has is enough, and that's good. But then he needs the second thing to happen in his life, which is he has to become dissatisfied with this being all that there is. It's so critical for you to know what you love, but not to have so much of what you love that you don't have dreams for something new. So every man has to get to a point where he's dissatisfied at some level. And some men wait for the tragedy, and some men are leaders and they realize that I'm willing to go before the tragedy comes to deal with the dissatisfaction that I have. And that will lead a man into a place where he's at a threshold moment in his life, where he really gets to come up to a precipice of something and to make a decision. Am I willing to walk through this? And in order for him to walk through it, he has to really get clear about what's at stake in his life, what's available and what's at stake. And if he gets to this threshold moment in his life, he has to have an insight that lets him know that it's worth going on the other side of that. We have been built to suffer as men in the world. From the time that we have to go out and hunt and be in the cold and go, we have been built to suffer. So most men get to the point of suffering. And what if they've been suffering for the last 5 years with their mindset or with their relationship? He can fucking endure that for another 5 years. So he just does. But a man who really wants to step into his greatness, he gets to a point at that 5 year mark where he's done doing that. This idea that we're flatlining in our life it's a lie. The entropy is a real thing. Entropy is the physics term that says that things are always falling apart. As soon as you build a car and it comes off of an assembly line, it is now starting to rust slowly over time, forevermore. And so what matters is what trajectory we're on as men, more than where we're at. If you're at the height of the mountain, but your trajectory is heading down, well, that matters more than you being on the mountaintop. It is also true that if you're at the bottom, if you're in the valley right now, what matters is what trajectory you're on. If you're heading up the mountain, then that matters more than you being in the valley. So this threshold moment is necessary, but a man who is only willing to suffer through the rest of his life is not going to step into a life that's really he loves. So because he has to step into uncertainty. He has to step into something that he's never done before in order for him to have something that he's never had before. But that's not easy for most men.
It's not easy for most people. It's daunting to have so much, to feel so little, and to put it at risk, to
That's
put it
right.
at risk.
That's right.
Um, you know, the title of my book is The Trade, because it's not free. It's not easy, obvious, or free.
Mm,
And what you just
mm.
talked about, this trajectory, if your trajectory is down and to the right instead of up and to the right, something's got to give. You got to trade something. You don't just get going back up and to the right. It's not going to happen. If you're waiting for somebody to come put you back on that trajectory, you better be
Mm,
ready to wait. And it's going to
for
be a
sure.
long ass ride. So you got to take an action, and you got to give. You got to give somewhere.
That's exactly because when we find ourselves at a threshold moment, if we do not step through, a year, 3 years, 5 years will go by in a blink of an eye, and we'll look back wishing that we had made a different decision 1, 3, 5 years ago. But now the time is gone.
That's right. Yeah, that's right, man. I call Normal 40 an insurance policy. I'm selling insurance. I'm selling the insurance against future regret. You can buy it and use it, or you can avoid it and wish you'd
Mm,
have had it. But really, that's what you and I are doing. We're trying
yeah,
to ensure people that if they do something,
yeah,
almost anything, at some point, they're going to be glad they did. And it's the best insurance policy they could ever invest in. You know, you
yeah,
you started off the bat with people. Individuals are really good about investing in the market and really lousy about investing in themselves. They're really
yeah,
good about having insurance policies for their house, their car, their health, but they're
yeah,
really lousy about investing in the well-being of themselves
yeah,
that help them feel good about who they
yeah,
are. I mean,
yeah,
this is just insurance policy. You either buy it and use it and change and you insure yourself against future regret. That's the beauty of what we're doing here.
yeah.
So
You know,
I need to flip this a little bit
okay.
because I think by now, if people are still listening, they're going to be like, "Holy shit, man, this guy's got my number. He's rattling my cage." And the next thing they're going to say is, "Okay, what the hell do I do about it? What
Mm,
do I do about it?" Great, you pegged me. That's me. My trajectory's wrong. I'm feeling like I'm living one of these five dead ends, most likely. I don't have any intimate friendships. I feel
mm,
frustrated in my career. I've got this great image, but my ego's telling me I'm built for more than this. But here I sit, frustrated in my inability to act. That's our
yeah,
person.
yeah,
They're sitting on the edge of their seat.
yeah.
What do they do?
Well, I believe that if men had different skills and different support, then the things that they're struggling with today would not be a struggle for them.
Okay, so what do they do?
So if one avenue, there's three different pathways that men get to when they find themselves at this threshold moment. There's three different pathways that they can find that they can take. The first pathway is for them to do nothing. Like that's a real reality for many people, maybe even most people. Your option, do nothing and see what happens over the next 5 years of your life. Just do that. And if you like what you get, keep doing it. And if you don't, then don't. The second option for men is what I would consider the long road, which is that you can continue to go it alone. You can curate an experience that will give you different skills, listen to more podcasts, read more books, do all what I, is known as, and I use the phrase, which is shelf help. Go read something, listen to something, and have most of it go in one ear and out the other, and go on to the next podcast, and just try to curate and develop on your own skills and support for you to, and that's way better than doing nothing, but it's still a long road. Or the third option is to take a shortcut, to seek out help from somebody that you trust, or at least that you trust enough to explore what it might be to work with them, whether or not it's a therapist or a coach or a men's group or a women's group or a church group, or like for you to realize I need help, I need new skills, and I need new support, and to figure out what is the best avenue for you to do that. Because getting into a trustable group of people with leadership that is there, that will have your back in this, to shortcut your growth and development. And I think, in a world where I don't know how much time we have left, I would highly recommend the shortcut route. So find a container for you to join that will curate the experience for you, that will fast forward your development so that you don't have to go to therapy for the next 10 years.
I feel like our listeners will, well, let me recap, then I want to go there. Um, one of my clients and I in a conversation, he came in and he was a physician. He's a physician and a really damn good one. And he's a emergency medicine physician. So he's a surgeon. And he came into my community and he's frustrated and all of the things we talked about. He'd lived his life right. He'd invested in himself. He'd taken the long road. He has a great family, has a healthy marriage, has all those things, but he was still just frustrated to have so much and to feel so little. And he had
Yeah.
everything he had chased.
Yeah.
And um, he came out of the program radically changed, radically improved, radically different. And right in the middle, when he was moving from agitation and frustration and indecision into um, ease and flow and progress, we coined this phrase in a one-on-one where I said, Jeff, at some point, you got to quit thinking and you got to fucking do something.
Mm.
And so he went away, he had his action, and the next month he came back and we're talking. He's like, there's something to that. I'm like, to what? And he said, just fucking doing something. He's like,
Mm.
that's all I've been doing. Every time I think I should do something, I think just fucking do something. And so
Mm.
this is just a simple way to put
Yeah.
an emphasis on what you just said. When you want to take the shortcut, you
Mm.
gotta just fucking do something.
Yeah.
JFDS, call Tait, reach out, send him an email, send me an email.
Mm.
Email this friend who you had when you were in sixth grade or third grade who helped you through a tough point in your life.
Mm.
Email your teacher who said, you're good at chorus. You should do this. Email your teacher who said, hey, dude, I think a ride along in a cop car would be good for you. And just do something. Don't waste the impulse of doing
Yeah.
something helpful for you. And you
Yeah.
don't overthink it. The first thing
Yeah.
you're going to do is, yeah, well, will Dave respond? Bullshit. Just fucking do something, man. And
Mm.
until you've done something, don't bother sharing with anyone how you're unable to get the help you need. You just got to do
Yeah.
something, and the world's going to show up for you. So
Yeah,
there
Tony
was
Robbins.
my
I just came out of that training, as I mentioned earlier, but he's got this phrase: "If you're in your head, you're dead,"
yeah,
which is, speaks to that, right? We can get lost in our thoughts and ideas and our visions and our, into what we think and all of those. But I love just JFDS. I love that.
JFDS.
Just fucking do something.
Yeah,
Because, even if it's the wrong action, it iterates us into the next right action, and it's really powerful. He
the
in a
wrong
world of
action.
phrasing, or trademarking something, I think that there's something to that.
JFDS.
JFDS.
If you look on the bottom of every one of my LinkedIn posts since 18 months, it says JFDS.
All right, there it is. So somebody
There it
has.
is. Um, I feel like one of the dangling things we've got left is, and maybe you don't know them all off the top of your head, but you talked about the five dead ends that men can find themselves on. I'm wondering, do you know them or a few of them off the top
Mhm.
of your head that you
Oh
can
yeah,
just
yeah,
share
and I
with
and I
us?
threw them in there. But one of the first dead ends for us as men is cynicism. Is that part of ourselves that is saying that what we want we can't have, the part of our ourselves that is constantly critical of ourselves, of our spouses, of our kids, of our jobs, of our presidents, of our whatever. Just constantly, we know, Dr. Daniel Amen calls them ants, our automatic negative thoughts. We all have them. We know from 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of them are repetitive. The cynical mind of a man will lead him down a dead end road. There's no way in the world that he's going to elevate the most important areas of his life if he has a negative mindset.
Number two.
This the second one is isolation, going it alone as a man in the world, trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, figure it out by yourself, just go it alone. That you alone have all the answers. It's a dead end that doesn't open up doors. The third is numbing out. Everybody uses, and I'm, the primary audience that I work with, so forgive me, but I keep using the word men, but every man that I know uses something to give him some pleasure to address the pain that he has. He's numbing out. He might be using porn. He might be working too much. He might be in 7 fantasy football teams. He might be, shopping. He might, whatever. But everybody is using something. He might be, doom scrolling. Everybody is doing something to numb out in your life. And if you're numbing out, there's a dead end there. The fourth is the way in which we can be disoriented. We can tell ourselves, I don't know what to do. Man, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. So I'll just do, when a man is disoriented, he spins in circles or does nothing. The fifth is a man might know what to do, but doesn't feel like he has the power to do it. He feels powerless. He doesn't feel like he beats himself up. It's the guy who set a New Year's resolution and only 7% of people achieve the New Year's resolutions that they have. So I just feel powerless about it. So I know what I want to do in my life, but I just don't have the discipline or the energy or the motivation to do it. And all of those dead ends lead to a life of wit in which we're more diminished than we have to be. And there has to be a key that when we find ourselves at the dead end road and there's a dead end door there has to be a key on the other side of that can open us up. And so if you are a man and by the way, I would have each man rank themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. How cynical am I? How lonely am I? How much am I numbing out? How much do I feel disoriented? How much do I feel powerless? And then to find the two areas of his life and lean into those areas. If he is primarily cynical, he's got to find a way to get inspired. He's got to have a vision for the life that he wants to live. If he is lonely, he's got to find a way to get supported. He's got to surround himself with people who have his back. If he is numbing out, he's got to find a way to actually get present to this moment, right here, right now. If he's disoriented, a man has to get oriented. He's got to know what direction he's going to head into. If he's feeling powerless, he has to start taking on practices that give him a greater sense of power. Every man, if I were to ask, what's one thing that you're not doing now that if you started to do on a regular basis would have you feel like you have more power in your life? Every man has an answer to that. Take one small, tiny step today that can help you break the chain of you feeling powerless and get fuel back in your life in that way. So those are the five dead ends and also the five keys to becoming fully enlivened.
So let's kind of go back to where we started some of this. How many of these five would you say your dad suffered from?
Oh, great question. I think my dad has been cynical, isolated, uh, numbing out, and powerless. I think he was pretty oriented. My dad, he worked so hard to provide for our family. I used to be very upset with my dad because he wasn't what I wanted him to be, but he loved me in all the ways that he knew how to love me. And when I really was able to start listening to the love, my dad was oriented in a way that really was sacrificing himself for the sake of the family that he loved. Um, and so he struggled with four, but he was oriented.
It's beautiful, man. Tate, this has been an absolute blast to spend some time with you.
Yeah, you too, man.
I learned
You
a
asked some
ton.
really great questions. I'm so honored to have a conversation like this with you.
Well, we share an audience, man. You
Yeah.
and I could talk another hour about
Easy.
we could. And maybe we should, and maybe we will. And by the way, maybe just maybe we should team up and do something more than a podcast. And who knows what
Yeah.
that could be.
Yeah.
But you definitely we have a lot, we've got a ton in common, not
Yeah.
least of which is age,
Yeah.
and the community we serve and the
Yeah.
passion we have and where we feel we do our best work is for the
Mm.
audience that you and I choose to serve.
Yeah.
So look, dude, I appreciate you giving me an hour. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed getting to learn so much more about you, and I really hope that we get to do this again sometime.
Oh man, be so honored and so grateful for this time with you. In a world, I mentioned that article, Why Men Don't Have Friends and Why Women Should Care. Given time and proximity, I have no doubt that you and I would find some real powerful conversations and could really lean into supporting each other. And I just salute you as a man in the world that's living your passion and your purpose and is oriented towards making a difference in the world. We need men like you out in the world being a beacon of light for other people in the world. And I just celebrate what you're doing. So honored to have this conversation. Thanks so much, Lon.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, man, I'm going to see you
brother.
on the next page.
This sounds great.